First contact. The crystalline spires of Terralux's capital city gleamed in the light of twin blue suns as Captain Marcus Reed's shuttle descended through wisps of lavender clouds. Below, the sprawling metropolis seemed to pulse with its own inner light, structures that appeared grown rather than built spreading in elegant fractal patterns. After 3 years of delicate negotiations, humanity's first permanent diplomatic outpost on Terralux was finally becoming reality. Final approach to Illuminous City, announced the shuttle's eye. Local dignitaries await at the Confluence Plaza. Marcus straightened his formal diplomatic uniform, running a hand through his short dark hair. At 35, he'd risen quickly through the ranks of the Terran diplomatic corps, his natural empathy and quick thinking making him the ideal candidate to represent humanity on this crucial frontier. "How do I look, Elsie?" he asked the AI. "Presentation optimal, Captain Reed. Stress indicators slightly elevated but within acceptable parameters." Marcus chuckled. "Thanks for the clinical assessment." The shuttle touched down with barely a tremor. When the hatch slid open, Marcus stepped out into air that smelled of exotic spices and electricity. A delegation of luminars waited in precise formation, their tall, slender forms draped in flowing garments that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. The luminar's skin ranged from pale silver to deep azure, with intricate markings that seemed to shift and flow beneath the surface. The tallest stepped forward, her silver-blue skin luminescent even in daylight. Elaborate swirls of energy pulsed beneath her translucent outer dermis, conveying what Marcus had learned was a sign of high rank. Her eyes, large and faceted like opals, reflected the light in hypnotic patterns. "Captain Reed," she spoke, her voice carrying a melodic quality that the translator couldn't fully capture. "I am High Counselor Ilara. Terralux welcomes you and your kind." Marcus performed the formal luminar greeting, pressing his palms together before his chest and bowing slightly. "High Counselor, I bring greetings from Earth and the United Terran Coalition. We are honored by your generosity in permitting this diplomatic mission." A subtle ripple passed through Ilara's bioluminescent patterns. Approval, Marcus hoped. 3 years of studying luminar culture had taught him their expressions were primarily conveyed through light rather than facial movements. "You have learned our ways well," she acknowledged. "Come, the confluence awaits." As they walked through the plaza, Marcus noted the curious but reserved gazes of the luminar citizens. Unlike the chaotic energy of human crowds, the luminars moved with fluid grace, maintaining precise distances from one another. He'd learned early in his studies that physical contact was strictly regulated in their society, though the reasons remained unclear in the diplomatic briefings. The entourage approached the confluence chamber, a vast dome that seemed to float above its foundation, constructed of a material that shifted between solid and translucent depending on the angle of view. Inside, representatives from various luminar provinces stood on illuminated platforms arranged in concentric circles. "The full High Council honors you with their presence," Ilara explained, "a rare occurrence for foreign dignitaries." "I'm deeply humbled," Marcus replied, meaning it. As they entered, a hush fell over the assembly. It was then that he first saw her. Standing beside what appeared to be Ilara's platform was a slightly smaller luminar, her skin a deeper blue with silver-white patterns that danced like starlight across her form. When her opalescent eyes met his, Marcus felt an unexpected jolt of recognition, as though he'd known those eyes all his life. Ilara noticed his reaction. "My daughter, Serafina," she said, a curious tone in her voice. "Our foremost xenobiologist and the head of the Human Integration Study." Serafina stepped forward and performed the formal greeting. "Captain Reed, your species has been my life's work. I have studied your transmissions, your literature, your history." Her patterns pulsed with what he recognized as excitement. "Humans are fascinating." Before Marcus could respond, a tall luminar with storm-gray skin interrupted, his light patterns sharp and jagged with what Marcus had learned to recognize as agitation or displeasure. "High Counselor, the ceremonial introduction was to be minimized. We have security concerns that..." Peace, Dravex. Ilara silenced him with a subtle flare of her bioluminescence. My nephew forgets himself, Captain. As head of security, he sees threats where sometimes there are only opportunities. Dravex's patterns dimmed, but his opal eyes remained fixed on Marcus with unmistakable suspicion. The formal ceremony proceeded, with Marcus presenting Earth's gifts and credentials. Throughout the proceedings, he found his attention repeatedly drawn to Seraphina, whose movements seemed more animated than most luminaries, her patterns shifting with a liveliness that reminded him of sunlight on water. After the ceremony, as the council dispersed, Seraphina approached him. Captain, I've been assigned as your cultural liaison. If agreeable, I'd like to begin our sessions immediately. There is much to share. I'd be honored, Marcus replied, aware of Dravex watching them, with barely concealed displeasure. Over the following weeks, as construction of the outpost progressed, Marcus spent hours daily with Seraphina, learning the intricacies of Luminar society. He discovered their civilization was far older than humanity's, having achieved interstellar capability thousands of years earlier before choosing to retreat and focus inward. Why did your people withdraw from space exploration? He asked one day as they walked through the botanical gardens where plants responded to presence by changing colors and shapes. Seraphina's patterns shifted to what he'd come to recognize as contemplative. We discovered something troubling about our physiology. Our evolution had taken us far from our original form, adapting us perfectly to Terralux. Too perfectly, perhaps. How so? We became dependent on our world's unique energy patterns. Extended absence causes a degenerative condition we call fading. It made colonization problematic. Marcus absorbed this. So your people chose quality of existence over expansion. Yes, she said, her patterns brightening with what seemed like pleasure at his understanding. We turned our science toward harmony rather than conquest. But now, with your species' adaptability and our knowledge, perhaps together we might find new paths forward. As days turned to weeks, Marcus found himself increasingly captivated by Seraphina's brilliant mind and curious spirit. Unlike many luminaries who maintained a reserved distance, she asked endless questions about Earth, about human emotions, about the chaotic unpredictability that defined his species. He, in turn, found himself fascinated by the subtle ways she communicated through light and movement, the graceful precision of her gestures, and the depth of thought behind her questions. Though romance had never been part of his diplomatic mission parameters, Marcus recognized the growing attraction he felt toward her, an attraction that seemed, impossibly, to be reciprocated. Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Dravex's opposition to the human presence intensified, with security incidents at the construction site becoming more frequent. Meanwhile, conservative factions of the Luminar Council began questioning Ilara's decision to allow permanent human settlement. Your people's technology spreads like a virus, Dravex argued during one particularly heated council session that Marcus attended. Already our youth mimic human behaviors, adopt human fashions. Where will it end? With strength, Ilara countered calmly. Evolution requires adaptation, nephew. Isolation has brought us to the brink of stagnation. The political tensions came to a head 3 months after Marcus's arrival. A human construction worker accidentally activated a sacred luminar artifact, causing a disruption in the city's energy grid. Though no one was harmed, the incident sparked protests from conservative factions. That evening, Ilara summoned Marcus to her private chambers, where Seraphina also waited. The High Counselor's patterns seemed troubled. Captain Reed, our situation has become precarious. Ilara began without preamble. The conservative houses are calling for the human outpost to be abandoned. Dravex and his supporters gain influence daily. Marcus felt a sinking sensation. High Counselor, the incident was unfortunate, but surely with proper cultural training. It is not about the incident, Seraphina interrupted, her patterns flickering with agitation. It is about fear of change. For millennia, we have remained static, safe. Your presence forces us to confront our stagnation. Ilara's patterns shifted to a configuration Marcus hadn't seen before. There is a solution, though it is unprecedented. Our ancient laws provide for integration of outside elements through bonding rituals. Marcus looked between them, confusion evident on his face. Bonding rituals. Marriage, Serafina clarified, her patterns pulsing with what might be nervousness. A diplomatic union between our peoples, embodied in individuals of high standing. The implication hit Marcus with stunning force. You're suggesting a union between you and my daughter, Ilara confirmed. Such a bond would be protected by our most sacred laws, forcing even the conservative houses to accept the human presence. Marcus turned to Serafina, speechless. Her opalescent eyes met his, and within their depths, he saw not just political calculation, but something more personal, more vulnerable. This is not merely strategy, Serafina said softly. Though I cannot deny its political advantages, I have developed feelings that my research did not prepare me to understand. Emotions that I believe mirror your own. The directness of her admission took his breath away. In human diplomatic relationships, such personal revelations would be considered inappropriate, yet her honesty disarmed him completely. I feel the same, he admitted, the words emerging before he could analyze their diplomatic implications. But marriage. Our species are so different. The physiological compatibility alone would be managed through adaptations. Ilara interjected. Luminar bonds transcend the physical. They are connections of energy, of consciousness. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. Personal, professional, diplomatic. A union with Serafina would tie him permanently to Terralux, altering the trajectory of his career and life. Yet as he looked at her, watching the starlight patterns of her bioluminescence respond to his gaze, he found the prospect not frightening but exhilarating. If Serafina is willing, he said finally, then I would be honored. The wedding preparations moved with astonishing speed. The United Terran Coalition, recognizing the diplomatic coup, quickly approved the union. Within 2 weeks, Marcus found himself standing in the ancient bonding chamber, surrounded by the entire High Council and a small delegation of humans from the outpost. Dravex had protested vehemently, but could not override the High Councilor's decision. He stood now at the periphery, his patterns radiating poorly concealed anger as the ceremony began. The chamber darkened until only the bioluminescence of the luminars provided illumination. Serafina entered, her form draped in flowing material that amplified her natural light, making her appear to float as she moved toward Marcus. She was breathtaking, her patterns dancing with complex emotions he was still learning to read. The ceremony itself was unlike anything in human tradition. No physical contact occurred between them. Instead, they stood on opposite sides of a crystal pillar that gradually absorbed their biometric data, pulsing with increasingly synchronized patterns. The High Priestess spoke in ancient Luminar, the translator struggling with concepts that had no human equivalent. Something about energy resonance, soul recognition, and eternal binding. The bond recognizes compatibility beyond form, the priestess announced finally. You are now joined in the eyes of the ancestors and the living. May your lights shine as one. As the final words were spoken, the crystal between them flared with blinding intensity. Marcus felt a strange sensation, as though something new had taken root within his consciousness, a presence, gentle but unmistakable. Serafina's eyes widened, her patterns flaring with surprise. I can sense you, he heard slash felt rather than heard. This is unexpected. The bond is stronger than predicted. Before Marcus could process this development, the ceremony concluded. As tradition dictated, they were escorted separately to the bonding suite, where the newlywed couple would spend 7 days in seclusion, learning to navigate their new connection. The suite was beautiful, a circular chamber whose walls shifted with gentle colors reflecting the emotional states of its occupants. A large sleeping platform dominated one side, while meditation areas and nutrition stations completed the space. Marcus waited, heart pounding with nervous anticipation. When Serafina finally entered, her patterns pulsing with similar nervousness, he rose to greet her. "Wife," he said, testing the word. "Husband," she replied, her patterns forming what he now recognized as her equivalent of a smile. "Our new journey begins." Marcus moved toward her, instinctively reaching out, but she stepped back sharply, her patterns flaring with alarm. "What's wrong?" he asked, confused. Serafina's patterns stabilized, but her expression remained troubled. "There is something about luminar physiology that could not be explained before the bonding. Something sacred and secret. I don't understand." She moved to the center of the room, her eyes holding his with solemn intensity. "Among my people, physical touch is permitted only between bonded mates, and even then under specific conditions. There are reasons, both biological and spiritual." Marcus stood perfectly still, sensing the weight of what she was about to reveal. "You're not supposed to touch me, human," Serafina said softly, her patterns forming complex shapes he couldn't interpret. "Not yet. Not until you understand what happens when you do." Sacred boundaries. Marcus stood frozen, the weight of Serafina's words settling over him like a physical presence. Outside their chamber window, the 3 moons of Turalux cast shifting shadows across the crystalline cityscape, their light reflecting in the facets of her opalescent eyes. "I'm afraid I don't understand," he said carefully. "The diplomatic briefings mentioned cultural regulations regarding physical contact, but nothing about bonded mates having restrictions." Serafina's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a configuration he hadn't seen before, something between apprehension and determination. She gestured to the meditation platform, and they both sat, maintaining a careful distance. "There are aspects of luminar physiology that are sacred knowledge, shared only with those who need to know," she began. "What I tell you now has not been revealed to any outsider in our recorded history." The gravity in her voice made Marcus lean forward, diplomat's instincts fully engaged. "My people evolved as energy conduits," Serafina continued. "The unique electromagnetic fields of Turalux flow through us, sustain us. Our bioluminescence isn't decorative. It's the visible manifestation of this energy processing." She raised her arm, where the starlight patterns danced beneath her translucent skin. "When luminars touch, our energy fields interact, sometimes dangerously." "Dangerously how?" Marcus asked. "For unbonded luminars, casual touch can cause energy disruptions. Painful, occasionally harmful. This is why our society developed strict protocols." But for bonded mates, her patterns pulsed with what he was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. "The interaction is far more profound." She rose, moving to retrieve a small crystalline device from a wall niche. When activated, it projected a 3-dimensional model of intertwining energy fields. When bonded mates touch, their energy harmonizes, creating a temporary unified consciousness. We experience each other's thoughts, memories, sensations, complete transparency. It is intimate beyond physical understanding. Marcus absorbed this, his mind racing through implications. And with a human, what would happen? Serafina's patterns flickered with uncertainty. "Unknown. The bonding crystal's reaction suggests compatibility, but your nervous system isn't evolved to channel Turalux's energies. The touch could be harmful to you, or transformative," she finished quietly. "Our scientists theorized that compatible species might experience partial energy integration, leading to temporary psychic connection without full consciousness merging. But it remains theoretical. No luminar has bonded outside our species before." The enormity of what she was saying, what their marriage truly meant, left Marcus momentarily speechless. He'd agreed to a diplomatic union, never imagining the profound biological and spiritual dimensions involved. "So when can we touch?" he finally asked. "The traditional protocol requires 7 days of energy attunement," she explained. "Meditation exercises prepare both partners for the first connection. It's not merely tradition, it's biological necessity." Marcus nodded slowly, diplomats training helping him process this cultural revelation without visible shock. Then we'll follow the protocol. Teach me what I need to learn. Relief flooded Serafina's patterns. I wasn't certain how you would respond. Humans value physical connection differently. We do, he acknowledged, but we also value understanding and respect. Besides, he added with a small smile, delayed gratification isn't entirely foreign to human relationships. Her patterns shifted to what he now recognized as her version of laughter. The tension between them eased as she began explaining the meditation techniques they would practice together over the coming days. Their first attunement session that night was challenging for Marcus. Human meditation focused on emptying the mind. Luminar practice involved actively visualizing energy pathways through the body. For hours, they sat facing each other, eyes closed, as Serafina guided him through unfamiliar mental exercises. Imagine the energy of Terralux entering through your feet, her melodic voice instructed. See it travel upward, illuminating each cell as it passes. Marcus struggled to follow her guidance, sweat beading on his forehead from the mental exertion. Just as frustration threatened to overwhelm him, he felt it, a tingling sensation beginning in his extremities, a warmth spreading upward. His eyes snapped open in surprise. I felt something, he gasped. Serafina's patterns pulsed with excitement. Your bioratings confirm it. You're actually channeling trace amounts of Terralux energy. Remarkable adaptation for a first attempt. Pride surged through him at her approval, followed by exhaustion so profound he nearly collapsed. Serafina helped him to the sleeping platform without touching him, her movements graceful and precise. Rest, she said gently. The first attunement always depletes energy reserves. As Marcus drifted towards sleep, he watched her through half-closed eyes as she performed her own evening rituals, her form silhouetted against the moonlight, patterns softly pulsing. Despite the strangeness of their situation, he felt a deepening connection to this alien woman who was now his wife. The morning brought an unexpected visitor. Marcus awoke to find Serafina in tense conversation with Dravex near the chamber entrance. Though they spoke in rapid luminar that outpaced his translator, the sharp, aggressive patterns of Dravex's bioluminescence needed no interpretation. Is everything all right? Marcus asked, approaching but maintaining a respectful distance. Dravex's opal eyes narrowed, his stance stiffening. Cousin, he addressed Serafina while ignoring Marcus entirely. The High Council requires your presence. Security concerns have arisen at the human outpost. What concerns? Marcus asked directly. Dravex finally acknowledged him with a cold glance. Unauthorized communication with an approaching human vessel. Your people failed to disclose a military transport entering our system. That's impossible, Marcus countered. All coalition movements in this sector require my authorization. Evidently your authority has limitations, Dravex replied, his patterns forming shapes that Marcus recognized as contemptuous. The matter will be addressed by the Council. Serafina's expertise is required. After a moment's hesitation, Serafina turned to Marcus. I should attend. Political tensions are delicate. I'll come with you, Marcus began, but Dravex interrupted. The bonding seclusion protocols forbid it. You will remain here until summoned. Without waiting for response, he turned and exited, clearly expecting Serafina to follow. She lingered briefly, her patterns conveying concern. Something isn't right, she whispered. Dravex has never shown interest in human affairs before. Be vigilant. After she departed, Marcus immediately activated his secure communication device, contacting Commander Hayes at the outpost. Captain, Hayes responded, her holographic form materializing. We've been trying to reach you. There's a situation developing. Unauthorized military transport. Hayes's expression registered surprise. No, sir. Quite the opposite. The Luminars have restricted all outgoing communications and increased security around our perimeter. They're claiming a quarantine protocol, but our sensors detect unusual energy readings throughout the city. Unease settled in Marcus's stomach. Send all data to my personal terminal. and haze, full alert status, but no provocative actions. Understood, sir. And congratulations on your marriage, she added with a knowing smile before disconnecting. Marcus spent the next hours reviewing the sensor data, concern growing with each passing minute. The energy fluctuations centered on the ancient temple complex adjacent to the confluence chamber, precisely where the council would be meeting. When Serafina hadn't returned by nightfall, Marcus's diplomatic patience reached its limit. Security protocols or not, something was wrong. He approached the chamber door, only to find it sealed, locked from the outside. Years of field training hadn't been entirely wasted on diplomatic missions. Within minutes, he had overridden the locking mechanism using tools from his personal kit. The corridor outside was surprisingly empty of guards, which only heightened his suspicion. Marcus moved silently through the residential complex, using his diplomatic access codes to bypass security checkpoints. The few luminaires he encountered seemed distracted, their patterns displaying configurations he hadn't seen before. Agitation, perhaps, or anxiety. As he approached the confluence chamber, he heard raised voices. Pressing himself against the ornate wall beside a partially open entrance, he listened. The evidence is irrefutable. Dravex's voice carried clearly. The humans conceal their true purpose. Their outpost contains energy harvesting technology designed to drain our sacred reservoirs. These readings are concerning, came Ilara's measured response, but inconclusive. Captain Reed has been transparent in all negotiations. Transparent. Dravex's tone sharpened. While his kind secretly prepares to colonize our world, the approaching vessel carries terraforming equipment. They mean to transform Terralux to suit their physiology rather than adapt themselves. A murmur ran through what must have been the assembled council. Marcus strained to hear Serafina's voice among them, but caught only fragments of other counselors expressing alarm. The bonding was a clever distraction, Dravex continued. While we celebrated their union, human engineers were installing these devices throughout our sacred sites. That's impossible. Serafina's voice finally rose above the others. I've monitored all technology transfers personally. Nothing of this nature. Your judgment is compromised by affection. Dravex cut her off. The evidence stands. I move for immediate security action against the human outpost and detention of all personnel, including your husband. Marcus had heard enough. Stepping through the entrance, he announced his presence. I'd like to examine this evidence myself, if the council permits. The chamber fell silent as every luminar turned toward him. Serafina's patterns flared with relief and warning simultaneously. Dravex, by contrast, showed no surprise, only cold satisfaction. Captain Reed, Ilar acknowledged, her tone carefully neutral. Your presence violates bonding seclusion protocols. A lesser concern, High Counselor, when my people stand falsely accused. Marcus moved forward, projecting confident authority despite being dramatically outnumbered. The vessel approaching this system is the U.S. Horizon, a scheduled scientific mission cataloging stellar phenomena in this sector. Its manifest was submitted to your ministry 3 months ago and approved. He turned to face Dravex directly. As for energy harvesting technology, the only devices installed by the outpost team are standard power regulators designed to prevent our systems from disrupting your energy grid, technology your own engineers approved. Dravex's patterns intensified, sharp angles reflecting his anger. Convenient explanations. Perhaps you'd care to explain these then. He activated a holographic display showing what appeared to be Terran devices embedded in crystalline formations. Marcus studied the images, confusion giving way to realization. These aren't Terran technology, he stated flatly. The design architecture is inconsistent with coalition engineering principles. Of course you would, Denny, Dravex began, but Marcus cut him off. The molecular structure visible in these scans contains resonating crystalline formations native to Terralux. No imported technology could integrate so seamlessly with your world's unique mineral composition. He turned to the council. These devices appear designed to mimic our technology signatures while serving an entirely different purpose. A murmur spread through the council as members examined the evidence more closely. Serafina moved to the central platform, her scientific authority evident in her bearing. Captain Reed is correct, she confirmed after analyzing the data. These aren't human devices. The energy signature is luminar in origin, though modified to generate interference patterns similar to Terran emissions. Her gaze shifted to Dravex. Someone with intimate knowledge of both technologies created these counterfeits. Dravex's patterns flared defensively. You accuse me, I who have dedicated my life to Terralux's security. I merely state facts. Serafina replied calmly. Facts that warrant investigation rather than hasty action against our allies. The chamber erupted in debate. Marcus moved to Serafina's side, careful still not to touch her despite the crisis unfolding around them. We need to leave, he whispered. Now. Her patterns registered confusion. The council must resolve. Dravex wouldn't have moved against us without contingency plans, Marcus interrupted urgently. If political manipulation fails, he'll try something more direct. Understanding dawned in her expression. With subtle movements, she guided them toward a side exit, while the council remained distracted by heated deliberation. They had nearly reached it when alarm tones reverberated through the chamber. Security breach at the human outpost. A luminar guard announced, rushing into the chamber. Explosions reported at the perimeter. Chaos erupted as counselors demanded information. Dravex seized command, issuing orders to security forces. In the confusion, Marcus pulled Serafina through the exit and into a service corridor. He's staging an incident, Marcus explained as they moved swiftly away from the chamber, creating the very attack he accused us of planning. The outpost. Your people. Serafina began. Hayes is prepared, but we need to find somewhere secure to coordinate a response. Serafina's patterns shifted decisively. The ancient laboratories beneath the city. They're shielded from modern scanning technology. My research team uses them for sensitive experiments. They move through increasingly less populated sections of the complex, descending via service lifts to levels Marcus hadn't known existed. The architecture changed, becoming more organic, with corridors that appeared grown rather than constructed. These chambers predate our modern civilization, Serafina explained as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. The ancestors' knowledge preserved in living crystals rather than digital systems. Eventually, they reached a sealed doorway that responded to Serafina's unique bioluminescent pattern. Inside, a vast laboratory spread before them, filled with equipment that blended biological and technological components in ways that defied Marcus's understanding. We'll be safe here temporarily, she assured him, activating communication systems. These channels are isolated from the main grid. They quickly established contact with Commander Hayes, confirming Marcus's suspicions. The explosion had been targeted at uninhabited storage facilities, causing property damage, but no casualties. More concerning, Dravex's security forces had surrounded the outpost, claiming protective quarantine while effectively cutting off all coalition personnel. This has been methodically planned, Marcus observed grimly. The false evidence, the staged attack, even the timing during our bonding seclusion, when I'd be separated from the outpost command. Dravex has always opposed opening Terralux to outsiders, Serafina confirmed, her patterns reflecting deep concern. But this level of deception, endangering our own people, I never imagined he would go so far. A sudden alert from the laboratory's security system interrupted them. Multiple life forms approaching, Serafina translated, checking the monitors. Security forces. They've tracked us somehow. Marcus surveyed the laboratory, tactician's mind assessing options. Is there another exit? Yes, but it leads deeper underground, away from the city. The ancient tunnels are unstable, partially flooded with energy pools that can be dangerous to navigate. More dangerous than Dravex's forces, Marcus asked wryly. As if in answer, the main door shuddered under impact, the sound of energy weapons discharging against the ancient material echoing through the chamber. The tunnels, Serafina decided, leading him toward a concealed passage at the rear of the laboratory. But Marcus, you should know, the energy concentration in the lower levels is extreme. Extended exposure could have unpredictable effects on your physiology. Versus certain detention or worse up here. I'll take my chances. He grabbed a portable analysis kit that resembled Coalition technology. Can you contact your mother from down there? Possibly through the ancient communication crystals, but Dravex will be monitoring traditional channels. The door behind them buckled inward as Serafina activated the concealed passage. They slipped through just as security forces breached the laboratory, sealing the hidden entrance behind them. The tunnel beyond pulsed with bioluminescent fungi that responded to their presence, brightening to illuminate their path. As they descended, the air grew thick with energy Marcus could almost taste. Metallic, vibrant, alive in ways Earth's atmosphere never was. What exactly is Dravex after? Marcus asked as they navigated the increasingly narrow passage. Destabilizing human-luminar relations seems an extreme measure for simple xenophobia. Serafina's patterns darkened. I fear it's more calculated. The ancestral prophecies speak of a time when Terralux's energy would begin to wane, requiring a great transition. Some interpret this as evolution through outside influence, what my mother believes our alliance with humanity represents. And Dravex? He follows a more radical interpretation. The prophecy also mentions a purification, where those who remain untouched inherit a renewed world. Her patterns formed complex configurations Marcus couldn't interpret. The conservative faction believes this requires isolation from all external influences and the concentration of Terralux's dwindling energy among fewer worthy vessels. Understanding dawned. Fewer luminars, more energy per individual. Population control disguised as religious prophecy. Precisely. My mother's progressive policies and the human alliance threaten this vision. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern that took Marcus's breath away. Pools of liquid energy illuminated the space, casting rainbow reflections across crystalline formations that stretched from floor to ceiling. The air itself seemed to shimmer with potential. The heart chambers, Serafina whispered reverently, the source of Terralux's unique energy fields. Few luminars have seen this place in generations. Marcus felt lightheaded, his skin tingling uncomfortably as his body responded to the concentrated energy. It's intense, he managed, leaning against a crystal formation for support. Concern flashed across Serafina's patterns. Your physiology isn't adapted to this level of exposure. We should move through quickly. As she spoke, a tremor ran through the cavern. Dust and small crystal fragments rained from above. What was that? Marcus asked, alarmed. Serafina's patterns shifted to configurations he recognized as fear. Energy weapons. They're bombarding the upper tunnels, trying to flush us out or trap us below. Another, stronger tremor shook the chamber. A large crystal formation near the entrance shattered, sending dangerous shards flying in all directions. One sliced across Serafina's arm, drawing iridescent fluid that glowed with inner light. Without thinking, Marcus lunged forward to steady her as she stumbled from the impact. His hand closed around her wrist, the first physical contact between them since their marriage. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. A surge of energy unlike anything Marcus. Betrayal and flight. The formal announcement of Marcus's transformation sent shockwaves through both human and luminar societies. Coalition headquarters demanded extensive debriefings, while luminar religious authorities debated the theological implications of a human successfully undergoing adaptation. For 2 weeks, Marcus and Serafina endured endless medical examinations and official inquiries, their bond barely sustaining them through the political maelstrom. Despite Dravex's imprisonment, his radical faction had not been silenced. If anything, Marcus's transformation had given them potent propaganda, proof that humans could contaminate luminar physiology rather than simply coexist alongside it. The Coalition medical team wants another tissue sample, Marcus said wearily, entering their private chambers after yet another debriefing session. His bioluminescent patterns flickered with exhaustion, the geometric blue-green configurations dimming as he collapsed onto a resting platform. Seraphina's patterns shifted sympathetically as she joined him. My mother's scientific advisors have requested the same. Everyone wants to understand how your human genetics integrated so successfully with luminar energy physiology. Through their bond, Marcus felt her deeper concern, not for the political situation, but for him. The constant examinations and questions left little time for him to process his own transformation, to come to terms with what he had become. "I'm still me," he reassured her, answering her unspoken worry as he took her hand, their patterns synchronizing instantly. Just more, somehow. Their consciousness merged in the now familiar way, thoughts and emotions flowing between them with perfect clarity. This capacity for complete sharing, beyond words, beyond even telepathy, had become their sanctuary amid the chaos. In these moments of connection, political concerns fell away, leaving only their deepening bond. "I hear whispers among the conservative houses," Seraphina's thoughts came to him. "Travex's supporters claim your transformation is the first step in a human plan to absorb or replace our species." Ironic, Marcus responded through their connection. "The Coalition scientists fear the opposite, that I'm the precursor to luminar assimilation of humans." Their shared amusement at the parallel paranoia faded as a more serious concern surfaced in Seraphina's thoughts. Security reports indicating increased activity among Travex's followers, particularly around the detention facility where he awaited trial. They wouldn't dare attempt a rescue, Marcus thought, although his diplomatic instincts suggested otherwise. Fanatics rarely acted rationally, especially those convinced they were saving their civilization from contamination. Their mental communion was interrupted by an urgent notification from the chamber's communication system, reluctantly breaking their physical connection. Seraphina moved to activate the interface. High Counselor Ilara's image materialized, her patterns conveying controlled urgency. "Daughter, Captain Reed, you must relocate immediately to the secure facility beneath the ancient observatory. Travex has escaped custody." Marcus stepped forward, his newly developed diplomatic military instincts sharpening. "How? When?" "Approximately 20 minutes ago." Internal collaborators within the security forces. Ilara's patterns shifted to configurations indicating strategic planning. More concerning, he accessed the weapons repository before escaping. Energy disruptors, pulse rifles, and at least one resonance bomb are missing. The implications were immediate and severe. Resonance bombs were luminar defensive weapons designed to destabilize energy fields, devastating against ships or structures dependent on energy shielding. In the hands of a fanatic like Travex, such weapons could target the human outpost or, worse, the city's main energy distribution nodes. "We're implementing emergency protocols," Ilara continued, "but intelligence suggests you two are his primary targets. The observatory's ancient shielding should protect you until he's recaptured." "And the human outpost?" Marcus asked, already gathering essential equipment from their chambers. "Being evacuated to secondary locations," Ilara assured him. "Commander Hayes is coordinating with our security forces."